Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it's your first time here. My name is Noemi and today I'm going to be talking about 10 books that I'm hoping to read in July. But yeah, so if you've been here for a while, you do know that I usually choose my TBR with my TBR jar, but here's the thing. I think I mentioned this in my June TBR. I want to remake it, but I didn't get a chance to remake it in June, so now like my TBR jar is just completely out of date. It's got books that I unhauled. There's books that I've bought recently that aren't in there, so I feel like it's unfair to use it because like not all the books are in there. So for this month I just decided to choose books that just like spoke to me more when I went to pick them out on my bookshelves. So I chose 10. They're over here, you can't see them, and they're mostly romance books because I'm in a very romance book mood. And then next month we should be able to go back to our usual letting my TBR choose my TBR for the month videos. So also, I just got back from work. I haven't had supper yet. I'm kind of hungry, so I've got my snack. And we're just gonna quickly go through each book, try to figure out what they're about together, because if you know me at all, you know that I don't like to know what the books are about, so I just buy them. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to read out like the back of the books, or like try to give you a synopsis of each book. First book on my list is a book that I've been wanting to read for quite some time, and I finally just picked it up because I looked at it and I was like, yeah, I think I want to read you this month. And that book is Alone with You in the Ether, which is a love story, a romance book, but I think it has like a fantasy element to it. This book is very beloved all over the internet. I got sucked into the hype and I purchased this book, a hardcover adult book, which is $36 in Canada. But anyways, I do really want to read this. I'm glad that I chose it for this month because I feel like it's time to read this. I tried reading The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, the same author, and I did not finish it. So I think I'm curious to see how I'm gonna feel about this one. I don't know if it's her writing or just the story of The Atlas 6 like wasn't really for me, but I've heard amazing things about this. I'm excited to read it, and now let's try to figure out what it's about. The two people meet in the Art Institute by chance. Prior to their encounter, he is a doctoral student who manages his disruptive thoughts with compulsive calculations about time travel. She is a bipolar counterfeit artist undergoing court-ordered psychotherapy. By the end of the story, these things will still be true, but this is not a story about endings. Seems to me like they have very complex backgrounds, and like they meet and it's gonna like be chaos. For Regan, people are predictable and tedious, including and perhaps especially herself. She copes with dreariness of existence by living impulsively, imagining a new alternate timeline by being created in the wake of every rash decision. Kind of makes me think of Marvel, like every single decision you make creates a new timeline, right? To Aldo, the world feels disturbingly chaotic. He gets through his days by erecting a wall of routine, backbeat of rules and formulas that keep him going. Without them, the entire framework of his existence would collapse. For both of them, life has been a matter of resigning themselves to the blueprint of I can't talk, I'm too tired. Inevitability until the two meet. 6 conversations with a stranger be the variable that shakes up the entire simulation. So this like really does sound like a more complex romance book. Like they both have a complex background, and then they both have very strong personalities and challenges, and then they meet, and like I also feel like the synopsis doesn't give you much, but I am excited to read this. I'm very intrigued. Talks about time travel, which like I'm excited to see what that's all about. This book is not even 300 pages, so I'll probably be able to read this pretty quickly. I am aiming for 8 books this month. I've kind of had a slow May and June, so this month I'm aiming for 8 books. So this is book number 1. Next book is actually a literary fiction romance book, so more of a contemporary romance. And I actually got it in a shopping vlog on this channel a bit over a year ago, and I saw it when I was choosing books, and I was like, you know what, it's been a while since I've had you, and I think it's time I put you on a TBR. So this book is The Standin by Lily Shu. This has a lot of doodles in the book, which I love. But also this is about like a normal girl and then a celebrity girl. And they both really look alike, so they switch places. So Gracie is actually like the normal girl that switches places with a movie star. And there's a very attractive bodyguard, Sam. So, you know, like, sounds really entertaining and like quirky. There's a lot of doodles, so like I'm intrigued about those doodles. And because this is in the literary fiction at my bookstore, I imagine that it's gonna have more elements than just romance, and I'm excited for that because like I've been reading few like non-specific romance, but there's a spider. But I've been reading a lot of books that aren't like centered a romance. There's more stuff going on, and I've been really liking them, and I think this is what it's going to be too. And also, I'm a sucker for switch stories, like when two characters like switch places. I love those stories so much, like either movies or books. I really enjoyed those stories, so I'm excited to get into this one. A beautiful cover too, it's so cute. I love the pastels, and I've also heard very good, so I'm excited to get started, hopefully in July. Next up is a book that I don't know why I haven't read yet, which I also bought almost a year ago. And like, it seems like the perfect romance book that I'm always looking for, and for some reason I never read it. Also, I just realized these people on the cover, they don't have faces. That book is The American Roommate Experiment. I have read The Spanish Love Deception by the same author, and I loved it. It was one of my first like spicy romance books, and I really enjoyed it. And when this came out, I like ran to the bookstore to get it, and I have not read it yet, which is weird. I don't know what this is about. I think it's like a roommate situation. So Rosie quit her job. She wants to focus on her secret career as a romance writer. She quit her job, then the ceiling of her New York apartment literally crumbles on her. So she heads to her best friend Lena's empty apartment, not knowing that Lena has already lent the studio to her cousin Lucas, who Rosie has been stalking on Instagram. To Rosie's surprise, Lucas offers to let her stay with him, at least until she can find some affordable temporary housing, and then they're gonna fake date. So Rosie is actually like on a creative block. She doesn't know what to write. She's in a slump. And Lucas learns about that, and he decides to help her by bringing her on experimental date meant to jumpstart her romantic inspiration. Sounds so cute. But Lucas's stay in New York has an expiration date, and 6 weeks may not be enough time for either her or her deadline. If you know me, you know that fake dating is one of my favorite tropes in romance books. And now I'm even more excited about this. Like, I knew about the roommate part, but I didn't know about the fake dating part, which is like the main reason why I don't like to read synopsis of books when I buy them, because then like it's a big surprise and it's so fun. So adding this one to my pile. Oh, I want to read this next. I want to read everything, but I have like no time, so that makes me sad. But next book is probably on everybody's July TBR, unless they've already read it. I have not read it yet, so it's on my TBR. That is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This is Ali Hazelwood's newest adult romance book, and I just love Ali Hazelwood, okay? Like, both her books, The Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain, I both gave them 5 stars. I love them. They were very fun to read, and I'm sure this is gonna be no exception. I also love her length of books. It's like not too long, but also not too short. And I also don't know what this is about, so let's see. Definitely it's about 2 nerds, 2 science geeks, and I love that. Ali Hazelwood really likes to write about women in STEM, so I'm sure that this also has a woman in STEM. So Elsie is a professor toiling away at grading labs and teaching thermodynamics in the hopes of landing tenure. And she's also making up for her non-existent paycheck by offering her services as a fake girlfriend. Are we fake dating again? Tapping into expertly honed people-pleasing skills to embody whichever version of herself the client needs. It's a pretty sweet gig until her carefully constructed LC verse comes crashing down because Jack Smith, the annoyingly attractive and arrogant older brother of her favorite client, turns out to be the cold-hearted experimental physicist who ruined her mentor's career and undermined the reputation of theorists everywhere. So I think we have a fake dating thing and an enemies to lovers thing in an academic setting. Amazing. Also, the sun is like right in my face right now. Hazelwood proves that she is this perfect writer to show that science is sexy as hell, gloriously nerdy and sexy, with on-point commentary about women's STEM. Can you tell I'm excited to read this? I'm so excited to read this. This actually might be our July book club book. We are very late with choosing a book, but I'm gonna say on the screen if it is, and you can join our book club by following the link in our bio. Next, I decided to have at least one book that wasn't romance. So for this one, I have Bunny by Mona Awad. This I've heard very good things, and I'm also kind of in the mood for like a messed up book, and I think this is it. Will it be as messed up as I want it? I don't know, but like I know it has like some kind of like culty vibe. Scholarship student who prefers the company of her dark imagination to that of most people. Samantha is utterly repelled by the rest of her graduate fiction writing cohort at New England's elite university. A clique of unbearably saccharine yet sinister rich girls who call each other Bunny and seem to move and speak as one. And then Samantha, even if she like doesn't like them, she ends up going to their front door, ditching her only friend in the process, and then she ends up going deeper and deeper into the bunnies' world and begins to take part in their monstrous experiments. The edges of reality begin to blur. Her friendships with Ava and the bunnies will be brought into deadly collision. So like this kind of feels culty-ish. I don't know. I heard somebody say that it was like cult-ish, culty. But I'm like really interested, very intrigued by the synopsis of this. Sounds like it's going to be like a very nice break from romance. Not that I need a break, but I like to have like different genres in my reading. I just threw this one in here. I'm very intrigued. And there's also like another book called All's Well by the same author, and I've seen that one too around. So again, this is a very short book. It's 305 pages. So I'm choosing some short books for this one. I'm trying to catch up with my Goodreads challenge because I'm so behind. I'm really behind and I don't like being behind. Anyways, this is book number like 5. Yes. Of the TBR. Next one is another romance, but it's also fantasy. So it's a romantasy, which is a word I've learned in the last month-ish. And it's definitely a genre I want to get more into because it has romance, but then it also has fantasy, and I want to read more fantasy, but I don't think I want to read like those very full-on fantasy books that are like 600 pages. I think I would rather read fantasy books with romance in it. So the book I chose was actually on my June TBR, and that is Fortuna Sworn by KJ Sutton. And this is like about, I think, a human girl, or no, she's a fairy, fae, in the fae world. I'm not good with the vocabulary of that world, but she hides among humans. She works at a bar, and then at night she searches for her brother who went missing 2 years ago. And then she sees a powerful fairy that desires Fortuna because he wants her a lot. He offers an exchange that she could not resist. So Fortuna reluctantly leaves her safe existence behind to step back into a world of creatures in power. Like, she was hiding amongst human, and now she is back into a world that like she kind of didn't want to be into anymore. I have read this, surprisingly, because I cannot remember the plot of this book, but I have read this, I think 2 years ago. Actually 2 summers ago. I think it was August when I read it. But I do want to read it again because, like you just saw, I forgot the whole plot of this. And also, I want to annotate it because I was not annotating at the time that I read this. And I also have volume 2 of the series, so you know, want to read this, keep going with the series, and also get into romantasy a lot more because I feel like it's a genre that I would really enjoy. Because romance is like my number one, right? I want to branch out, so I try to find books that are not fully romance but do have that romance element with, like, for example, like Alone with You in the Ether and The Standin. They're both like non-specific romance books, but they have romance in them, so I'm trying to read those more. But also just straight up romance, I like that too, obviously. Next book is a queer adult workplace romance, I think, and it's also an independently published book, and I follow the author on Instagram and he's so cool, so like I'm excited to get into his book. It's Chip Pons, and the book is You and I Rewritten. I say that it's a workplace romance just because of the cover. They kind of look like they're at work, but I might be completely wrong. So let's see. I've never read the back of this. All right, we've got one guy, Bill, who gets hired into a publishing house, and then he crosses paths with Graham. How do you say that name? Oh my gosh. Graham? No matter how hard he tries, he can't help but put the wrong foot forward in front of the all business and inconveniently gorgeous heir to the publishing empire. Okay, it is a workplace romance. So this seems to be about like very in the publishing world, and he gets an offer or like a manuscript that he could work on, and he takes that opportunity. And there's also the other guy who's very charming and gorgeous, and I'm guessing will distract him a lot. I've heard amazing things about this, and also the cover is one of those amazingly gorgeous covers. So this is You and I Rewritten. This was a very like vague synopsis, but I will be able to tell you more about it once I read it and review it. Next book. I have read a book from this author in June and loved it, so I want to read another one, and that book will be The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. I read The Flat Share. One of my favorite books of the year. Probably one of my top 5. But The Road Trip, I think this is another literary fiction, so a book that has romance in it but doesn't like completely revolves around it. And this is about 2 exes that reach a new level of awkward when they're forced to take a road trip together in this endearing and humorous novel by the author. So I think it's like they're heading to a wedding, but like there's a car crash and they end up figuring out that it would be a lot more convenient to just take the same car to go, but they are exes. So it's like awkward. So they also pick up Dylan's best friend, who is Addie's sister. Addie is her girl, and a random guy on Facebook who needed a ride. They squeeze into a space challenge mini and set off across Britain. Crammed into one space, Dylan and Addie are forced to confront the choices they made that tore them apart and ask themselves whether that final decision was the right one after all. It's like a forced proximity book romance about 2 exes, and they're heading to a wedding in the same car, and they're gonna have to talk it out. And I love that. That sounds so interesting. And they haven't spoken in 2 years. I'm going to love that. And Beth O'Leary's writing is so incredibly fun to read. Like, the font in this is very small, but she writes in a way that like you just fly through it, and I think that's amazing. I've also read The No-Show by Beth, and I thought that was amazing as well. Like, all of her books so far that I've read, they're all 5-star reads. The only book that I don't own right now is The Switch, and I'm definitely getting that book as soon as possible. Like, and then we have another full-on spicy romance book that I got almost a year ago as well. What is going on? I'm like, my brain is like, now is the time that you read these books. You have to read them. Book is Maggie Moves On by Lucy Score. The only book by Lucy that I've read is Things We Never Got Over. I read that over a year ago, and I've been wanting to read another one of her books ever since. This one is like one of her thinner ones. All of her other books are like 500 pages, and I'm like, scares me a bit. But I chose this one at the store a good while ago, and I've been wanting to read it since. There's a dog on the cover. Amazing. And it's also on the spine. So this is, I'm pretty sure, a enemies to lovers kind of thing. No. Anyways, we've got Maggie. She is a house flipping sensation and YouTube star. She cannot wait to dig into her next challenge, so she heads over to Idaho with only a cot and a coffee maker, and she's prepared to restore a crumbling Victorian mansion in 4 months or less. She has her to-do list, everything that she needs, but what she doesn't have is time for a sexy, laid-back landscaper, Silas Wright. The man takes flirtation to a whole new level, and he does this shirtless, sometimes pantless. Did I read that right? Okay. He and his service school dropout dog. Oh, he has the dog, yes. So basically Maggie has a job to do and he's distracting her. As their summer gets downright steamy, Silas manages to demolish the emotional walls she spent years building, sending Maggie into a panic. He's the wrench in her carefully constructed plans. With the end of the project looming, she has a decision to make, but how can she stay when her entire career is built on moving on, aka Maggie moves on? This sounds amazing and very steamy. And also the chapters seems to be rather short, which I love. This is Maggie Moves On. Definitely, this book is like curved. What is going on? The last book is actually a reread. Well, there's 2 rereads, except one of them I don't remember the plot. The other one I kind of remember it. But this is a reread. I read Happy Place back in May. I loved it. I loved annotating it, and I decided that I wanted to annotate all of Emily Zanri's books. So I'm going to start with Beach Read. I've read all of her other books, well, the adult ones, but I was reading them when I wasn't really annotating, so I want to annotate them. And I'm going to start with Beach Read, which I think is still my favorite book of hers. And this is about opposites. One of them, the guy, is an author of literary fiction. In January, the girl writes romance, and they decide to help each other out with a writer's block. So they like switch their genres, and so she writes like a sadder story and he writes a romance story. So, you know, it's super interesting. I remember loving this book, 5 stars, you know, like amazing book. But I do want to annotate it because I've annotated Happy Place and I want all of her books to be annotated. So I'm excited to have this on my TBR, and it's actually the last book on the TBR. So I think I picked out a pretty good stack of books. I'm excited about all of them. I don't know like what my reading is going to be like because I am working now for July and August, like 9 to 5:30 every day. You know, I'm gonna try to read as much as I can. I've already read 1 book in July, so my goal is to read 7 more to get to 8. And since I'm definitely in a romance mood, I'm definitely going to be picking out romance more, but I do want to branch out and try different genres, so you know, I'm open to that. I'm going to put on the screen right now some other books that I'm hoping to read because they're part of book club. So like I have a bunch of book clubs that I'm part of, and I want to read those books because I freaking love book clubs. I have my own with my little sister, which I've mentioned before. It's linked down below, and we will be starting a July book eventually. I'm just not sure at the moment that I'm filming this which one it is. So if you're interested to join that, it's linked below. Yeah, just other books that are on my mind because they're book club books. And I think that's it for me today. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I had some fun. It's been a while since I've sat down to film a video. Like I said, I started work and I'm a bit tired, but I'm gonna try to make time for video filming because I need to like figure out some kind of posting schedule now that I'm working full-time. So yeah. I have a bunch of links down below if you want to go check them out, like my TikTok, my Instagram, my Goodreads. Feel free to go check them out. And if you like this video, give it a like. I really appreciate it. And if you want to see more of my videos, you can definitely subscribe to my channel. I post kind of regularly, hoping to post more during the summer once I get settled and comfortable with my job. If you've made it to the end of the video, I almost forgot. It's been so long since I filmed the video. But yeah, if you've made it to the end of the video, comment down this emoji and I'll see who made it to the end and stuck around with me, even if I'm not all that interesting. I hope you enjoyed. I am going to go eat supper now because I'm starving and like I'm just eating these. They're good though. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and I will definitely see you guys again with the next one. Bye!